Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. In today's lecture, ladies and gentlemen, we'll provide another installment on our series for The Prince, written by Mr. Niccolo Machiavelli. We're going on to chapter 8, so if you haven't gone back and watched chapters 1 through 7, I highly encourage you to do so, because while Mr. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't directly influence the thinking of the founding generation, the tactics and strategies that he outlines in The Prince are used and have been used for quite some time by tyrants and governments to successfully, manipulatively, or deceitfully, that's the better word, I don't think manipulatively, anyway, deceitfully undermine their citizens and ultimately lead to the enslavement and subjugation of free peoples. So let's go ahead and jump on over to The Prince. Like I said, we're going on to chapter 8, which is titled States Won by Crime. Now, thankfully, this chapter is short enough that we can just go ahead and read through it all. As always, please go and read through the chapters by yourselves, just so there is zero concern about any sort of misinterpretation or mischaracterization about what the context in Mr. Machiavelli's book actually says. So he starts off with this: States won by crime. Aside from lucky circumstances and positive qualities, there are two other ways a private citizen can become a ruler, and we should include them in our discussion, though one of these would find more space in a book about republics. They are first when a man seizes power by some terrible crime, and second when a private citizen becomes hereditary ruler with the support of his fellow citizens. As for achieving kingship by crime, we'll discuss two examples, one from ancient history and one from modern times, and look no deeper into the question, since these will be models enough for anyone obliged to take this course. Agathocles was a Sicilian. From being a private citizen, one of the lowest of the low, in fact, he became king of Syracuse. Born a potter's son, he lived a life of depravity from start to finish. All the same, mixed with that depravity were such excellent mental and physical qualities that, having joined the Syracusan army, he rose through the ranks and eventually became commander-in-chief. Once he'd taken charge, Agathocles decided to make himself king, using whatever violence was necessary to keep the power conferred on him as commander without being obliged to anyone. He discussed his intentions with Hamilcar, a Carthaginian, whose army was then fighting in Sicily, and reached an agreement with him. Then one morning he called an assembly of the people and the Senate as if he had important state business to discuss. At a prearranged signal, his soldiers moved in and killed all the senators and richest men in town. After this massacre, Agathocles became king of Syracuse and held his throne without any resistance from the people. Twice defeated by the Carthaginians and then actually besieged, not only did he manage to defend his town, but leaving some men behind to resist the siege, he led the rest out of Syracuse to attack Africa. The siege was lifted and the Carthaginians pushed to the brink of collapse, at which point they accepted an agreement which allowed them to keep Africa and left Sicily to Agathocles. Looking at Agathocles' life and achievements, you won't find much that can be attributed to luck. As I said, he had no backers or benefactors when he took power, but rose to the ranks, surviving all kinds of hardships and dangers. And when he'd got power, he knew how to take tough, dangerous decisions to hold on to it. On the other hand, we can hardly describe killing fellow citizens, betraying friends, and living without loyalty, mercy, or creed as signs of talent. Methods like that may bring you power, but not glory. If you consider Agathocles' ability to take risks and come out on top, and his remarkable spirit when it came to facing and overcoming obstacles, it's hard to see why he isn't rated as highly as the most outstanding military leaders. But his brutality, cruelty, and inhumanity, together with the endless crimes he committed, mean he has no place among the men we most admire. In conclusion, we can't attribute Agathocles' achievements to luck or to positive qualities, since he needed neither. In our own times, we have the example of Oliverato, a man from the town of Fermo who lived during the papacy of Alexander VI. Orphaned of his father while still very young, Oliverato was brought up by his uncle Giovanni Fogliani, who had him join the army under Paolo Vitelli, in the hope that with military discipline he would rise to a high rank. On Paolo's death, Oliverato served under his brother Vitellozzo, and being very capable with a strong personality and powerful physique, he soon became the army's top man. But since he felt that working with others was demeaning, he decided to take Fermo for himself. Having got the support of some of the town's citizens, people who preferred to see their city enslaved rather than free, and with the backing of Vitellozzo, he wrote to Giovanni Faglioni, saying that now so many years had gone by, he was eager to come home and see his uncle again, visit the town, and check over some of his property. And since, he wrote, he'd been working hard for nothing but the prestige of his position, he wanted to ride into town in style with 100 mounted friends and servants beside him. That way his fellow citizens would see that he hadn't been wasting his time. And he asked his uncle please to arrange for the people of Fermo to organize an appropriate reception, something that would not only honor him, but also his uncle, who had brought him up. Giovanni spared no effort to do his nephew proud, and after the people of Fermo had given him a formal reception, Oliverado was welcomed into his uncle's house. A few days later, having used the time to make secret arrangements for the crime he was planning, he threw an impressive banquet to which he invited Giovanni Fogliani and all the town's leading men. After they'd finished eating and sat through all the entertainments you get on these occasions, Oliverado slyly launched into some weighty reflections on the power and achievements of Pope Alexander and his son Cesare Borgia. When Giovanni and the others joined the conversation, Oliverado suddenly got to his feet and said these were matters best discussed in a more private place, and he headed for another room with Giovanni and all the other citizens trailing after him. They had barely sat down before Oliverado's soldiers rushed out of their hiding places and killed the lot of them. After the massacre, Oliverado got on his horse, rode around the town, and surrounded the chief magistrate in the state palace, with the result that people were forced to do what he said and set up a government with Oliverado as the ruler. Having killed everyone who opposed the coup and might hit back, he strengthened his position by setting up a new army and new civil institutions, so that within the year he was not only undisputed master of Fermo, but also a serious threat to the neighboring towns. And as with Agathocles, it would have been very hard to unseat Oliverado had he not let himself be fooled by Cesare Borgia, when, as explained earlier on, Borgia lured the Orsini and Vitelli men to Sinigalia. Oliverado went with them, and so, just a year after killing his uncle, he was strangled along with Vitellozzo Vitelli, his mentor in courage and crime. You might well wonder how on earth, after all their countless betrayals and cruelties, men like Agathocles could sit safe on their thrones for years and even defend themselves against foreign enemies without their citizens ever conspiring against them. And this, while many others equally ready to use cruelty weren't even able to hold on to their power in peacetime, never mind in war. I think it's a question on whether cruelty is well or badly used. Cruelty well used, if we can ever speak well of something bad, is short-lived and decisive, no more than is necessary to secure your position, and then stop. You don't go on being cruel, but use the power it has given you to deliver maximal benefits to your subjects. Cruelty is badly used when you're not drastic enough at the beginning, but grow increasingly cruel later on rather than easing off. A leader who takes the first approach has a chance, like Agathocles, of improving his position with his subjects and with God too. Go the other way, and you have no chance at all. It's worth nothing that when you take hold of a state, you must assess how much violence and cruelty will be necessary to get it over with at once, so as not to have to be cruel on a regular basis. When you stop using violence, your subjects will be reassured, and you can then win them over with generosity. If you don't do all it takes at the beginning, because you were badly advised or didn't have the nerve, then you'll always have to be wielding the knife, and you'll never be able to count on your subjects, since with all the violence you're handing out, they won't be able to count on you. So get the violence over with as soon as possible. That way there will be less time for people to taste its bitterness, and they'll be less hostile. Favors, on the other hand, should be given out slowly, one by one, so that they can be properly savored. Most of all, though, a ruler should have the kind of relationship with his subjects where nothing that can happen, good or bad, will force him to change his approach, because if hard times demand it, your cruelty will come too late, while any concessions you make will be seen as wrung out of you, and no one will be impressed. So that is all Mr. Machiavelli has to say in Chapter 8. If you have any questions about what was said in Chapter 8, maybe questions about what was said in the preceding papers, or maybe there's a legal topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, go ahead and post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to equip you with the necessary skills and information such as this to combat any sort of lawfare that will be waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Excellent. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, Go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and until I see y'all in the next lecture for the next topic, bid you all farewell.